Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and on this stream we work on a Django app, working you through the whole process of building an app that is online, serving real customers, and going through my journey of what it takes to build a software as a service. Tonight we're going to focus on bugs and UX polish and various things that have been popping up over the course of running this school year. So I'm running a homeschool application. And so it serves homeschool families. And so the school year element is because it's serving homeschools. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to go over some UX stuff. So you're free to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development. That's what I'm here for. And we'll just jump into it. I actually didn't have any particular issue in mind, so there's a bunch of things that have been popping up. We'll stare at one and see if it's a good fit, and then if not, we'll move on to some other one. So so this scheduling bug appeared in the application, and this customer that's commented on here is my wife, who happens to be one of the customers of the site, and she was outlining a case that she saw. And I think I need to try and replicate the case. So there's some logical bug in the system, and she was in some scenario trying to check if what was going on, and this is basically the scenario. So she's looking ahead to a future week and had a course that had 3 different tasks in it and had marked off the first task. And so she had a break day on a Friday, because we were on vacation, and looked ahead to the next week and wanted to print off, like, what are we working on next week when we get back to school after our vacation is over. And unfortunately, what she recognized after the fact is that the schedule was showing, instead of the second task, so task B, I'm just sequencing these A, B, C, she instead saw task C. So that tells me that something is wrong in my scheduling logic, and this is one that I need to investigate, and she looks into the future often, so I want the future reports to be accurate. So there's some kind of edge case or condition that I have failed to consider in the scheduling logic, and that's where I want to spend some time digging into that. So let's get up the code and figure out, we're going to do 2 things. We'll probably start by trying to recreate the scenario. I mean, that is crucial. If I can't do that, then I'm going to have a pretty hard time figuring out what the bug is. So we'll poke around with the user interface locally and do what data would I think replicate the problem. And then we can, if I can produce that, then we can take that same kind of data and produce it in a unit test. And from that unit test, we can work backwards and figure out what actually went wrong with the scheduling logic and fix the problem in the scheduling system. So let's take a look at what we have. Get the site going. So I'm running from localhost here. This is at port 5000, and I have not much data in this application. And you can see here we're on a Wednesday, and this is the time of this stream, and we've got a course here that has 3 items in it. So this might actually, the science course might be a perfect example if I can finagle it. So we're going to attempt to, what can we do to try and synthesize this? I think what I want to do is set a break day for Thursday and Friday and mark this lesson 1 activity as complete today, and then look ahead to next week, because she said she was doing a look ahead to the next week, and it was essentially this item right here would have listed the wrong activity. So that's what we're going to attempt to do. So let's go to the school year and mark off the 22nd and the 23rd as a break day. So we can come into the app here and we can add a break for 7/22/2021 and 7/23/2021, and we don't need a description, I think. So now we have 2 days marked off as a break. If we return to the week view, you can see that the rest of the schedule has been cleared for the 2 days, because that's an important element of this. The way my app works is all of the tasks are slotted not for specific days, but they're in specific slots and based on the recurrence of whatever course there is. So this course, Science, happens to run every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And it will try and fill up all of the activities for that day. And the reason that there's not anything listed on Monday and Tuesday is the system is designed specifically to advance the stuff. So if you happen to miss Monday or you happen to miss Tuesday, rather than forcing a user to go and shuffle things around, it has this logic built into it, just kind of slide things along. So that's why there's nothing listed here. So what I'm going to do is mark this lesson 1 task as complete. All right, so now we're marked as complete. And let's go to the week view. Excellent. So we've recreated the scenario. That's really good news. It's not something that we'll have to hunt down. It means it's a pretty realistic case. It has something to do with break logic. So the way this works under the covers is this is a course in the modeling. Actually, let's open up the model diagram because it'll be useful to view. So I have a model diagram here, and let's jump over and take a look. Whoops. Let's take a look at the course. Where are you? Okay. So over here, you can see there's this course model. And the course is a summation of tasks. It's a container for a set of tasks, so the activities that are going to go slot into each day. And the way that I display in the app what is going to be on that week is by doing an index into the database. So I treat the database table as an ordered list of tasks. They are ordered by the time that they're added. That's when the person wants to do them in their schedule. And the first thing to do is filter out any tasks that are complete. So I take the entire set of completed tasks, and that is by having anything with a coursework is considered a completed task. And I take all of those IDs and I say, extract that, so separate the sets. So once I have the set of incomplete tasks, then it's a matter of indexing into that remaining list to decide what to display. The challenge is that with this system, and the reason why the scheduling is so hard, and frankly the reason why this is a compelling application, like this is the value add for this site, is that looking ahead is like the killer feature here. The getting this right of knowing what to show and factoring in weekends or holidays or just different schedules. Like there's nothing that says a class has to run Monday through Friday. So all of these things kind of combine to make this logic actually a pretty gnarly kind of scheduling problem to determine what that index is. So clearly what's happened is, even though I have a lot of this stuff right, seemingly, I am missing some logic, some kind of corner case here. Okay, so I think what we want to do is now try to replicate this for a unit test. And then from there, we can figure out what is causing that index to be off. Why is it being skipped? Because what's really happening is some kind of off by 1 error, it seems. Like if it's showing the third task, why is it skipping the second task? Some kind of logic is factoring in too much into the calculation, and it's probably, in the end of this, it's probably like a scenario where I'm missing an equality check or something like a greater than or equal to kind of thing, where I'm right at the boundary condition and I don't have it quite right. That's my guess, but we won't know until we're able to see it. So this view and this schedule, we got to find out, I remind myself where that is. I think it's it's a model method if I recall. But once we find that model method that calculates the schedule, then we can go add the appropriate test in the appropriate test file. So I believe this code exists with the student model. And yeah, this is unfortunate. Like I'm beginning over time to rethink how I want to put all this together, because it's a weird, kind of a weird question to ask on this model of saying, hey student, get me your week schedule given a school year. Like, why is a student expected to know that? That's where I put it initially. So, and I probably did it for various reasons, but that's where it lives right now. So this is the method that we have to work with. It's this particular get week schedule method, and it's a pretty involved method. So you can see that here's the get week schedule. This is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. We have to get the active courses. There's another method involved. There's a pretty big loop here. There's a thing to build the tasks for the actual context in the template. There's some extra logic to loop over the dates. It is a large method. And this is, if anything, like this is the core business value of the application here. It's kind of the beating heart of the app. So I got to be careful with this, not to screw up the scheduling. But that's why we're writing unit tests first. So let's go over to the students test models file and look for the get week schedule where those tests exist. They start here. So actually, let's go in the opposite. So I'm going now go to the bottom of the file, the bottom of these tests. So this is the last test that's calling this directly, and it follows my my similar pattern. And so I know that this is the last test because I can visually see that there is a space on either side of this line, which tells me that this is the action that I'm asserting on. So this is definitely the thing that I'm trying to test. I arrange my tests in the arrange, act, assert pattern, the AAA pattern. That's arrange, act, assert for doing test design. And here we are. So we need to, I think what I'll do is I'll say, I'll start from this test, and I'm going to paste it just because it's got a lot of configuration on it, and I'm guessing a lot of it is stuff that I'll have to do again anyway. So we want, what do we want? We want to get, let's see. So the thing that we're trying to test is the next week starts with the correct task when the current week has breaks. That's kind of lame. I don't really like that. Docstring. Let's see. Let's say get week with breaks. Because I'm trying to tell a story here. That's the objective of this test, because future me is going to be like, what the heck is all, there's a bunch of setup that has to go into this, and we haven't gone through this to make sure this is actually even necessary yet, but it may be. And if so, like I'm looking at this previous test, and this is an example of a bad test of mine. Like I don't really understand what I was trying to test here because I didn't leave myself any kind of clue. This is something I learned earlier in my project, and I really taken to heart the value of writing a good test documentation string. So I would recommend that if that's if you're writing your own apps, because even future you could be like, oh, what are you talking about? So I don't know. Maybe this is the most accurate statement for now. Let's just shorten it so we can get out of the too long string problem. All right, now it's time to modify this test to reflect the data setup that we just did. And I think what I want to do is freeze the time. We'll look for an example of freeze time. And I want to freeze it to today. Like, I want to set up basically this exact scenario, and I want it to stay like that as a proof that I've captured this forever, so that, you know, even if my test suite runs on a Sunday and changes, then it's not going to matter because I've captured the proper conditions. So we'll say freeze time, and we're going to freeze it to today, which is, at the time of this recording, is 2021. It's July, it's the 21st. So we'll say this is a Wednesday. All right, so now we also need to import freeze gun. So from freeze gun, import freeze time. Okay. So now this call to timezone.now.date will be today. And a lot of times I do like to write my tests so that they are adaptive to the date, so that it doesn't really matter, and I just make everything relative to the date. But the date's going to matter in this particular circumstance, because we want to specifically cross over to the next week boundary. And it's just going to be easier if we can just freeze everything into place. Okay, so we need, what do we need here? In this example, I have created a school year that starts 30 days ago. I don't know that that's even strictly needed anymore. Let me go see, let me check on something here. So let's go to the student factories. Student factories. And so it uses a grade level factory, which is from schools. Okay, schools, factories. Which has a school year factory. And the school year factory is already picking a start date 38 days in the past and a bunch of days in the future. So I think the advantage of freezing the time is that I don't have to do this kind of silliness to say, here's the time range where I want you to start. I think this is an old test, and that's why that was there. So I'm going to try taking this out for now. We might find that we need to put it back in later, but we'll see. So we've got an enrollment. The enrollment is the thing that ties the student together to a grade level, which is ultimately tied to the school year. And you can see it looks like I've extracted that out. And this is creating another grade level for reasons that so I don't think we're going to need another grade level. So let's take that out. And the reason that they had that is, well, I don't know exactly know. They, me, past me. And there's also, I don't think that this is necessary either. So this is definitely an old test, because I can write grade levels is equal to enrollment grade level to wire the course to the grade level. So we do need a course for this. And let's take out the school year for now. I don't think we need that. And this is where, so what else do we need? We need, let's just write it down, because I'm going to be trying to keep my brain straight between data that's needed and then the factories that I need to use. So we're going to need a task completed today. So that'll be a coursework with completion date of today. We're going to need a break for tomorrow. We're going to need a break for Friday. Both of those things, by completing to the end of the week, should be enough to trigger the condition. And what we actually want to do is when we want to get the coursework for a week here, we don't want to use this week. We want to use the week that is next week. So to do get next week. I'm sorry that I still need to change my comment color there. It's like blue on black. It looks pretty rough. So that might be a little hard to read. Apologies if it is. So getting down in here, we have a coursework. We want, I think we only need a coursework, which again is the tracking for whether a task is done or not. So we need to map it to the student. It needs to have that connection, and it needs to be connected to the course. And we can say that the completed date for this particular coursework should be today. So we'll do that. And then I don't think we'll need this other coursework, but we are going to need, in my list I left off one. We need a task for next week. Okay. I don't think that we're actually going to compare anything with this coursework, so it just has to exist. There just needs to be an entry, and Factory Boy is going to be creating these in order. So this will be the sequence. So this will be the completed thing that will go on today, and the next thing that we make will be a course task will be for next week. Well, I guess we'd actually probably are initially going to need to see two of them, because in our example data, looking ahead at next week, it was skipping one, right? It's jumping to the third one. So in order to be able to see that, we're probably going to need to hold on to a third task. Otherwise, it might actually show us the right thing. I don't know. That might be another boundary case. So we have the task that's completed for the day. That's done. And then we're going to have a course task factory call, which will take the course is going to be the current course. And there's no coursework. There's no connection to a student yet. It's just the fact that this task exists on that course. That would be enough to put it on the schedule. If we have two of those, the second one is the one that we're going to see. So this will be the wrong task. All right. All right, we're getting pretty close here. We need this to be next week. And the week model is coming from the core schedules file. So let's go over there. I can't remember if I made it. Okay. So we can give it a day and it'll calculate the week. So I set all the week to be like fixed here so that, oh, that got crazy. So that it will always pick the Sunday prior to the Saturday. So the Sunday was marked as the first day of the week, I think, and then the Saturday was the last. Pretty sure that was what my customers requested. So, so when we go down to our test, what we can do is pass in a time delta that just, in order to get it in the right range, we can say date time delta of days, right? Yep, days equal 7. And what that'll do is the week constructor will set the first day and last day appropriately, but it doesn't really matter. So it's just boxing it into the right slot. And by putting it ahead 7 days, I know that we're going to be in next week for sure. So let's drop that to do. We've got next week. We want to change this to next week. And now let's just assert on what the week coursework is. We'll assert it on an empty dictionary to see. I also want to print out the wrong task. What I'm hoping to see in the coursework is the wrong task listed on the Monday. Oh, I didn't expect it to pass. That's not good. All right, so something happened. Oh, we haven't put in the school breaks yet. So both of these course tasks fit on Thursday and Friday. There is no task yet for next week because they all fit in this current week. So let's go to the course models and where's the break? Ooh, I call it school break. I think I did. Okay. So we need a couple of school breaks to finish this off. So we've got the task for next week, and then we need the breaks. So school break factory, and that's going to take, I don't remember. It's been a while since I worked with some of these models, so my apologies for not being so quick on the uptake. So we're going to go to the school break, and it's going to take a start date and an end date. Okay. So the school break factory is, actually we can give it 1. I don't think we even need multiple. We can say that the start date is equal to tomorrow. So that's going to be today plus time delta, date time delta, days equal 1. So that's tomorrow. And then we can say that the end date is going to be equal to today plus date time delta, days equal 2. So that should be Thursday and Friday. Hopefully everybody follows that. If you don't, let me know in the comments on the chat, and I'll try and get you up to speed on whatever you might be missing. So we need to import this factory because we're not using it in this models. So from schools, we need the school break factory, which I believe will go here alphabetically. And now, with any luck, now it shouldn't be an empty dictionary anymore. Oh, come on. All right. Let's see what they're putting in the current week. Let's drop this. Let's take the current week. Why is this not what we want? So this is showing trying to parse like what this is. This hash ID is the course ID. Thankfully I have this comment kind of helping us out here. There is the date, the week first date. Oh, interesting. That's not right. Pretty sure. First date is 21. That would be today. That does seem right. And there is an object on here. So where did our other tasks go? Did I... that seems wrong. It's got the right course association. Let's look at the model a second. So there's a course here. There doesn't need to be a grade level because it's not specific to a grade. It just only cares about the fact that it's to a course. Don't worry about it. That's a different kind of feature. So we have that proper thing there. Let's check. Let's do homeschool courses, models, import the course task. There should be 3 of these. So let's assert that the course task objects count is equal to 3. Okay, so there are 3. That's good. Where are they? Why is it not showing up? That's bizarre. So if it's not showing on this week, shouldn't it be showing on next week? One would think. Let's try switching it to, let's make sure we can, well, when we put in next week, it was just an empty dictionary, right? That's why the test passed, because we asserted against an empty dictionary and it said there's nothing. So where are these tasks going? That's a really good question, because this doesn't seem right. Because it seems to me that there are 3 tasks and 2 of them are missing. The case of the missing tasks. Where did you go? What if I take out the school break for a minute? So no school break. And do it on this week. Hopefully, if I understand my own code correctly, there will be 3 days and 3 tasks to do. All right, let's maybe on test nearest. We need to see more, I think. Let's give me the whole structure. Now, what is going on? That's not cool. I wonder if we've frozen time and... I wonder if freezing time has something to do with this problem. Let's test this theory. So we just happened to write the freeze time to be the same date as today. So we can comment that out without the freeze time. Now we're doing it against real time. And is it going to affect the data? Well, I can tell it did already because it's in UTC, so it's already looking ahead. So I'm doing this late in the evening, so it's calculating it for the 22nd. Still, that doesn't show everything. Like, where are those other tasks? Something is amiss. What did I do wrong with these course tasks? Oh my word. I see it. And it's embarrassing. Look what we're calling. We're calling get the week coursework, not the schedule. So of course it's not showing the tasks. Of course it's only showing the coursework because we only made one coursework. Good grief. Well, at least we figured it out. So what is the real method that we want to call in this test? It's not the get week coursework. Let's go back to the students' models and let me wipe the egg off my face. It's get week schedule is what we really want to call. I feel pretty dumb. We may all make mistakes, right? So I still want to freeze this thing. So I don't think that the freeze time was really the source of the problem. I think it was just me being daft at 9:40 in the evening. So what we really want to call is the get week schedule. Where's that first called as a test? On line 102, it wrapped on the bottom. All right, so those tests are actually up there. So let's go down to freeze time. Let's take all this code and delete it. I still think it's the right code. We've still written the right test, even though we called the wrong method. But we're close. So let's go find the get week schedule. Schedule. And we'll plop the test down right here. That's the last one. Okay, so now we're in the right ballpark. Unbelievable. What does this method actually take? Let's refactor this. Let's clean this thing up to call the right thing. So we don't want the week coursework. That's dumb. We want the week schedule. And we don't want to call get week coursework. We want to call schedule, which takes a school year, the current date today, and a week to get the schedule for. So in order to get next week, we want to pass in we got to get the school year in there. So we get that via the grade level, which we get through the enrollment. And then we want to pass in today, and we want to pass in next week. Or you know what? Let's start with this week. Let's see what it looks like this week and assure ourselves that we actually have the right data this time. Now I would expect to see a single course with all of the tasks for the week with one of them marked as completed. Okay. Much more reasonable. Oh, I appreciate that. Digibirth the Mex. That's a curious handle name you've got there. I'm glad my stuff is able to help you out. And you can see clearly, even someone who does this a lot can make silly mistakes. All right, what do we have? We have the way this is laid out is we've got the week that we're looking over, and it has the days listed. It's a list of objects. And you can see Monday and Tuesday have nothing on them because we've already passed them at this point in time. That's where we passed in today. What is today? It always wants a frame of reference for its time calculation. So those are ignored, essentially. And then we get to the Wednesday. This is the day that has a completed task. And then we get to the Thursday has a task on the schedule, and the Friday has a task on the schedule. Okay, that makes sense. Let's add the school break back in, and then we're kind of working up to where we need to be. So now we've got the school break in. We'll run the same exact test. And nope, I need to run it in the same way so we see the verbose form. And now what do we see? We see Monday and Tuesday still skipped. That's good. Wednesday has the coursework. That is also good. Thursday. What? Why are they saying no school break? That's not right. School break factory. We forgot the school. Right? Yeah, you need a school. So I just picked. So here's what happened. By doing this, I did make a break, but I made it for some other random school because there was no school provided, so it slipped that in there. All right, so let's, since we're now using school year and we'll need to use it in a couple spots, let's go ahead and pull it out of the enrollment like it was earlier. Probably should have just kept it. So we've got a school year, and this will allow us to trim all this stuff off. And that will clean up that line, reduce those 3 lines down to 1, which is good. And then we can add the extra school year line here and say it's equal to the school year. So this is good why I'm stepping up to this, because I didn't have my test set up correct. And again, I need to see it with the verbose format. Okay, cool. So Monday and Tuesday have no activity and no school breaks. That's what we want to see. Wednesday has a completed coursework, which is also what we want to see. The Thursday here has a school break, and the Friday has a school break. And then just for future reference, as we get a little farther along, here's the description text of the course task. And we're going to need that in a second, because when the diff is going to print the course task, it's only going to identify it by the description, which is why I'm printing out this wrong task thing. And so that's going to go, we'll see that in just a second. So let's switch it to, it's still going to be today, still from the frame of reference of today, but now we want to look ahead to next week. And again, I'm so used to, so here's what's happening when I keep messing up my test invocation. I'm literally hitting spacebar followed by the T character. So 2 keystrokes, which is great on most of the time when you want tests to be really fast. But by default, PyTest doesn't give all the verbose context. So my keyboard shortcut does not give me a verbose test output. So that's why I need to do an EX command in my editor here. So you may not be familiar with Vim, but Vim has basically a command mode that you can kind of switch into, EX mode. And so you can execute commands, and that's what I'm pointing at, trying to highlight here in the bottom left corner. So I'm saying, my test plugin is saying test the nearest thing and pass it these command line options. In this case, it's -VV, which is a PyTest way of saying very verbose output, which was hinted at in the PyTest output from the previous command run, where it shows, hey, we're not showing this all of this here for you because it could be too much, but if you want to, put it in verbose mode. So my way to do that from my editor is to call it with this test nearest command. So that's what's going on, and why I keep getting frustrated at myself, because I keep getting jump on the gun and just doing my normal shortcut. So running it with the full output mode, which you can see this is a lot more stuff now, we're now looking ahead to next week. And here we finally have proven that this test is not what it should be. So it says, maybe recognize middle sit former. This is just junk text that gets dumped into this task creation for the description. And here's that wrong task that we printed out. All right. So what do we need to assert on? What is going to make this test pass? What we need to assert on is that we can go into the week schedule, we can go into the courses, we can go into the list and go into that first, that's going to be a dictionary. It's got days as some keys. That's another list. So there's quite a structure we have to navigate through. And And eventually we're going to want to say that the task in there is the right task. Hey, Quatlim, welcome back. Good to see you around. Thank you. Good to be back from vacation, wet rested. So we want to assert, what did I just say we want to assert on? So the thing, it said it is a, well, I'm already blanking out on the structure. It's hard to keep that kind of structure in your head. All right, so it's a dictionary. First is keys of courses. We've got the key of courses, and we want the first thing. Okay, now let's go ahead and run our test again. So we're digging into that structure, and we're getting closer. So you don't see the courses key anymore. You don't see that list anymore. We're getting down to it. So now we want to go into days, and we want to index into the first day, that Monday, there. So next is days, and then again into that first list. That's going to be the Monday. And then I believe the last thing is task, but let's just see it one more time just to make sure we're really zoning in on it. What do we've got? And so here's that one item. This is just Monday. And it says operation us short alone is the task. That's not the task we want. So what we want to do is we want to say task is the piece of data that we want to compare against. And now we want to see that that is equal to task. This, I think, is finally the test. So we've got our actual stuff coming back is, I'm still printing it out, is this final white country summer law view. These are fun to say. And the thing that we want is provide left hit him. That's not very nice, is it? It's funny what random strings can pull together. Okay, final cleanup. We don't care about this current week. That's not really what we're after. And we don't care. We know that there are 3 tasks. We've proven that. And we don't even need the printout anymore. And I guess we don't need to even have, well, let's leave the wrong task until we fix the logic. And then once we've proven that it's no longer the wrong task, that it's just task, we can delete this. And actually, let me put a to-do in there so I remember. Remove wrong task. So before we commit that code, we should hopefully get that right. Okay, so that seemed like, I mean, I just spent the last, I don't know, 30 minutes, 40 minutes digging into this. And some of that time, I've recognized that as being a streamer and trying to communicate to you my thought process, I'm definitely not going as fast as I could be if I was just doing this on my own. I hope that's clear. I mean, I could still make the same kind of goofy mistakes that I made getting there. But I have noticed that my stream time, there's a factor reduction. So even if you factored it down, and let's say you're a competent developer and you did that in 10, 15 minutes, why? Why would you want to do this? I think, in my opinion, like having reproduction steps makes it much easier to solve your future problems. By having a very clear case and example that we can work from, now what we can do, if we need to, is we're going to inspect the code here in a minute and see the scheduling logic and see where this breaks down and where that calculation is happening. But it also gives us the power to step through and like really dig into what was the context at the time of the issue. So I think it's useful for like the actual problem solving aspect of this, but it is also useful as a regression test. Like if I ever change the logic in the future, like there's reasons that I think some of you may have not have joined the stream yet, but I've shown the code that calculates this, and it's not simple code. It's complex code. It does a lot of things because it's factoring in a bunch of different weird edge cases. And by having these tests and documenting them well, it proves what those edge cases are, so that if future me is ever like, well, I can simplify this, then I run the test suite and prove to myself either I actually did simplify it or I forgot about some certain kind of edge case. So that's why I do this kind of stuff. I'm pretty confident in this test now, and I think we can go look at the actual code that is calculating this and drill into it and see what's going on. My theory, again, coming back to like, and what is even the problem? So a bunch of you, and I've noticed that the numbers uptick here. So let me revisit the problem one last time in case you weren't clear from the unit test. We've got this scenario where there's a couple of break days here, and there is a completed task here on the Wednesday. And looking ahead to the next week, these are numbered lesson 1, so there's lesson 1, 2, and 3. It jumps 1. It's an off by 1 error, most likely. And so it's going to lesson 3 when it really should be going to lesson 2. And that's no good. that's wrong. So we have to figure out what is it about that next week calculation that's getting that off by 1 error. That's the core of what we're trying to solve here tonight. Okay, so let's go over to the model stuff that it was going to this. I'm going to try and see if I can even put some breakpoints in there and get right to where I think the problem is going to be. And then we'll take a look at the calculation. The calculation is based off an index into a database table, and then counting the number of tasks in order that need to appear there. And I think that calculation is off somewhere. So let's open up the students models file again. Look at the write method this time. And we're going to skip through a lot of this because I know, just from my own personal knowledge, where this starts to matter. And or I believe, at least I think I know. Oh, I'm pretty sure. All right, I'm lying. I'm pretending to know. It's been a long time since I looked at this code. Ah, here it is. Okay. So we've got this private method that's building the course tasks that go into this schedule. And it has to do all of this calculation. It's based off of it. It's getting a bunch of information all at once. And some of this is denormalized for performance reasons, so that's why it's getting all of these parameters, which is why this is not straightforward. And when you get down to it, the critical element here is this task index calculation. So if we were to, let's just print the task index so we can see what it is, because this is almost certainly going to be the code that is executing. And so let's try running this test again, and we should see a number come out. The number is 1. So the number, on the face value, that seems like it should be the right number? Well, clearly it shouldn't, because it's wrong. So talking out loud here. When it's calculating that index, it is, I believe, trying to factor in what tasks have already happened. So this next index number really should be, it should be 0, right? Because there's only one task that's been done. And that's going to be filtered out with this exclude right here. You can see it right in this call. So it gets the task for this course and then excludes all of the completed IDs. So this is a query set, and that query set then gets excluded. And you can see how this logic happens. It then does a slice into the query set based on the task index. So the answer for what should Monday be should not be a 1. It should be a 0. So the question is, why is this coming back as 1? And we can get in here and look at this course task index stuff. And I have, this is probably my 3rd or 4th round of doing battle with this method. This is a hard method to get right for some reason. So my last attempt was not correct, I guess. And well, let's leave that. Why not? We're not going to keep it. And let's, let's switch these to be side by side. It's a little tight on the code reading. I know there's a resize. So there's a resize vertically. I know to go up and down, but I don't know if there's like a horizontal resize in Vim. I'm sure there is. I just can't think of what it is. So we'll stare at this a little bit non-optimally, but it's better than nothing, I think. You know what? No, it's not. Let's get rid of this. I can still, with my command, at least test the file, so we can get the output fairly quickly. Okay. So, see what I mean? This is where I've done battle with this method before. It's not simple. All right. Where to start? Goodness gracious. Wowzers. Okay. So it has claimed it's 1, but the index is based off of these 2 values of unfinished tasks this week. So that should be 0, because Monday and Tuesday are cleared out. There's nothing unfinished on Wednesday, and Thursday and Friday are a break. So that should be a 1. So we should be able to like test out each of these numbers, and maybe that's where it's going wrong. Unfinished tasks this week. We'll say unfinished. Let's see what it says. Unfinished is 1. So there we go. We're getting right down to it. And okay, another thing to think about here. I am doing print debugging, right? I'm using print. I think there's no shame in that. And here's why it's actually sometimes even beneficial. With some debugging, sometimes you want to step through a live cycle, and we may actually get to that. But sometimes you're like, you don't necessarily know where the problem is, and it's faster to kind of jump around and put in reasonable guesses and run it quickly and be wrong and try again. I kind of view it as this like shooting in the dark. Like I've seen this analogy used in code and other times, but think about like the way modern militaries with machine guns have learned to operate at night. What they do is they have tracer bullets, which are bullets that glow. They're phosphoric or whatever, and so you see a little bit of light. And so as they're firing, they just kind of see, oh, I'm way off target, so they'll like move over rapidly, right? And so I'm viewing these print statements as kind of like tracer bullets. I'm just kind of rapid fire, running the tests over again. That's the equivalent to my machine gun here, and seeing how far my tracer bullet is off, versus spending a lot of time calculating and trying to figure out exactly where I am. So And just by doing this minimal analysis, we've pretty quickly gotten it down to the index is off by 1, and it's coming from this unfinished count. And why is that unfinished count off is the thing that we don't know yet. So I think don't let anybody shame you into thinking that print debugging is a bad thing. I wouldn't use it all the time. I do still reach for regular traditional step debugging sometimes, but there's tons of value into rapidly iterating on your thinking on stuff. The other flow, so this is definitely the scenario that we're going to be in, is it's not going to be setting this to 0. So we're actually getting this unfinished count, the tasks this week, by getting the task count in the range. So I think I'm starting to see the problem already. This, well, maybe I'm not. Maybe this is factoring in break days and I'm just not thinking about that yet, or we need to dig into that method. That very well could be. So you don't all know my project's domain, but calculating the range of dates when a student can be doing activities is, again, kind of challenging because it has there could be the weekend, there could be holidays in between, there could be days that the course is scheduled to run for. So if you make a course that only runs on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, you have to make sure you skip Thursday. So you need the course itself. You need to have a bunch of pieces in here, and so we're going to have to dig in. I think the next place that we're going to is getting into this get task count in range, viewing the data that's coming into this test. What is today? What is the last school day? And then figuring out, why did this come back as 1? Did that make sense? Maybe it does make sense, and then the calculation logic for this helper method is actually off. That's a possibility. Or the other option is that this get task count in range function is not counting properly. I think that's less likely based on its scope and function. I think it's more likely that this code right here is just not figuring everything out properly. But until we dig into that, we won't know. So let's go over to the get task in range function. It's in the schools models. Get task count in range. And you can see this is why I think it's unlikely for this thing to be incorrect, because this is much shorter than the others. It's pretty tight. And yeah, I just think there's less room for this to be wrong. So print, we'll say this is the start, and we'll do the start date. And we'll do the same thing for the end. Get the end date. So we're going to see those two things. And then we will, we know that based off of what we've seen, this return gets assigned to that unfinished number. So this task count is getting incremented somewhere. So let's run this first. Let's see what dates we're dealing with. So there are 2 times this is being called. Oh, I think this is the one we actually care about, though. Unfinished of 1. Yeah. All right. So there are 2 dates that it's considering. Let's see, when is it actually, what is date to check here? When is it actually getting bumped is what I want to know. Oh, interesting. So it's counting. Okay, maybe this makes sense. It's counting the current day, the day that we had a completed task, as the task count in this range, which made sense, right? Because we passed in the start date was today, the 21st. So I think this code is doing what it says it's supposed to do. Get the task count for a course and factor in any breaks. Be inclusive of the start and the end. So if you passed in the start date, it's doing what it says in the tin. You asked me how many tasks should be done in this range. Today counts. So I think what that means is that my other code is doing this wrong. It's not factoring in the coursework that was finished today too. And so that's why it's getting that number off. And if it subtracted out that coursework that was completed today, then the resulting index number would actually be 0 and not 1. Hopefully some of that made sense. I know that's a lot of data, and I'm still like wrapping around my brain to see if I'm even convinced of this. But I'm feeling more and more comfortable that this method is right. So that gets us back to over here. And unfinished tasks this week. During the active part of the week, tasks roll forward each day. This means the unfinished work is everything from today to the end of the last school day. That makes sense. But where it fails is like the task today was done, right? So it's not doing. And do we have that coursework? Ah, shoot, man. So what goes in here? We have the course, but we don't have the task IDs. And this calculation down here is being naive by including today. Today may or may not be done. And I think that's the root of the problem. Like, okay, let's see. If we went back here, is this going to be wrong either way? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't think so. I think it will be right. So let's go into this day, and let's mark this as actually as incomplete. So now we're back to this is still to be done. And if we go ahead, then it's correct here. Because it literally, it's still, so that would be an unfinished task. So that means when we do the query and we're filtering out the completed coursework, that task won't be filtered in. So by indexing to 1, you get to the proper second task. So I can see how that logic worked if it wasn't complete. Okay, so my thesis then is that when we calculate this unfinished tasks, the to do here is to subtract out the actually completed tasks from this number. So this is like the hypothetically what could be completed, what could be unfinished, but we need to get the real unfinished, which may mean that asking this count, using this count range method might not be the right way to do this. We might need to look at the actual tasks that were for that scheduled for that week and compare them to the list and do like a real count based off of the actual week available. It's probably smarter, in fact. I'm gonna have to think through that. Okay. Where am I thinking? Like, how far do I want to take this? Let's think on this a little bit more, and I'll give it another 5 minutes because this has been a tricky problem and my brain's kind of getting fried. And if I haven't solved it by then I'll work it offline, and you'll at least have seen the process. Like, this was not at any point, hopefully you'll agree with me, a real guessing game. Like we had to I suppose we had to guess a little bit to kind of get to the code that was in question. But the process was guided by a test pretty much the whole time, and making real educated decisions based on observed data points. So we try to be fairly scientific about this in getting to at least where the problem is. Doesn't mean we have the solution yet, or I know roughly what the solution is, but the best way to implement the solution is kind of the next phase of this thought process, and how I want to best approach this. I'm just looking at this code right here, this logic, make sure I understand why this is happening. This was a special case logic for accounting for the weekend, and there was so my spouse has already encountered some problem with the system already, where she would look at the future schedule on Saturday or Sunday, and stuff that was not done from the previous week, but she wasn't going to go back and do it because school was over for the week, was being counted and affecting the future week. And so that's what that edge case is for. So when today is less than or equal to the last day of the week is a translation for this is really the week is still ongoing. In fact, maybe this is a good thing for me to, like, I don't want to have to think about this every time I look at this code. And as I've noted, I've had to come into this code often. So let's give this a variable. Let's give it a name. Is current week active? And that is equal to this today less than or equal to the last school day this week. And that seems like a kind of a stupid thing to say, but if I'm here having to explain it and having to walk through that cycle again and stare at this code, it's telling me that my code is not being descriptive enough. So now when I can look at this code, yes, there's a conditional here and there's a comparison, but really what I can just see is like, if is current week active, that I think reads clearer to me than trying to read this conditional. Yeah, that's a decent enough name. So this calculation, I have faith that this calculation itself is correct because I put so much thought into it. So we still need to get the unfinished tasks for this week. That name is the right thing, but how it is being calculated is the wrong thing. And what does that mean is the unfortunate part. We don't actually know what the tasks are until after this point. Because look, we're calculating the index here. We're like trying to predict the future. And calculating the index is going to give me a slice of tasks for this particular course. And only at that point could we know, is this done or not? But the index calculation is dependent on knowing what's done or not. So it's kind of a pickle. And I guess I know that some of you are not necessarily native English speakers, so a pickle is like a problem, a quandary. Sorry, it's an English phrase. So is there a way that we can solve this? This is, okay. I think it has to be solvable, because if we think about this, this is asking about doing an index into a future week, right? So that implies to me that the data for the current week may already be available. Like this get course task index function. Build course tasks. Is this called all the time? It is. Shoot. All right, there goes that theory. I was thinking it might have been a thing where I only call that task index calculation for future courses, in which case I could have kind of punted on this problem, but I don't think that's the case. All right, so, well, it is, yeah. So this chunk of code only runs on future stuff because there is this guard clause. When this is the current week or the past, we don't try and do a future calculation. So I could take advantage of that knowledge that basically everything below line 223 here is considered future index calculation. Probably figure that out. All right. Sadly, I don't think this is going to come up. I don't think I'm going to be able to devise a quick answer here. So I think what I'm going to do is let my brain have a rest, call it a night, and leave you all with this like cliffhanger of how is this going to resolve. I will have a good think on this and try and figure out the solution, and either come back next week with what did I devise as a solution, or we can work through it again. We're fresher mind, fresh perspective. Yeah, because I don't think I'm going to have too much more success. So anyway, I want to thank you for joining in on the stream tonight. Hopefully you saw my bug resolving process and how I kind of systematically debug bugs, and that was illuminating to you. Thank you for joining in, and have a great evening. Take care.